Hello and welcome to Art, Creativity, and Wellbeing. This is the show where we are always supporting you to give the same kind of care and love for yourself that you are accustomed to giving for others. Welcome, welcome. I am Kay Locke Cope. I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, a creator, and a thru hiker who used to need a wheelchair. And I am recording today. Today is a special one. It's one of our series of 12, one per month that we're doing in 2026, throughout 2026, based on the game that I made up in January called Days of Creation 2026. I have my game book here, and I'll be sure to put in the notes where you can grab the game book if you'd like to. Because you can still play even if you haven't done what the game book calls for yet. And just something that I just said too, I wanted to reference. Uh, I realize I have been saying, oh, I'm going to put this link in the show notes, or I'm going to put a link to this picture or something in the show notes. And sometimes I haven't been able to do those things. So I'm giving myself or trying to give myself grace on that. And thank you for the patience and the grace that you're giving me. Yeah, and I'm glad to be here with you. I've been spending the last, 2.5 weeks traveling to visit with my parents and my family in Colorado. And it's been a really interesting trip. It's been a really interesting trip, yeah. And it's just where we are today, looking back at March, because what the Days of Creation 2026 is in January. I took the first 12 days of January from the 1st to the 12th, and I sort of corresponded a month to a day. So the 1st of January was January 2026. The 2nd of January represented February 2026. This is the 3rd of January that we're looking back on today because we're talking about what March was for me. And it's so interesting. I've been looking through my notes and I've decided that instead of writing down in the game book what felt relevant, because just where my nervous system is today, I don't want to settle to write. I'd prefer to just share from my heart without having anything more written down than what I wrote back in January. And it's really, really, really interesting how that has corresponded to what's actually happened in March. And I think the word that really comes to mind, that the 3rd of January as it relates to March 2026, I can boil it down to one word, and that word is potential, which is so interesting to me. And I'm going to share, so part of what I wrote on the 3rd of January was something that it just happened to be the first anniversary of a really, really, really significant event and dream that I had exactly a year prior on the 3rd of January, 2025. And uh, for longtime listeners, you may remember or know, for folks who are new, in 2025, my family and I decided that we were all going to fly the nest. And my husband and I wanted to move to Maine, and the kids did not. So we started intentionally looking at, okay, where do we want to live and what does this look like? The kids did too, our sons. They're 21 and 25 now. They were 20 and 25 when they moved out last spring. And this dream, when I looked back on it, really, it really was the charting of a path for me and my life partner to fulfill the dreams of 28 years together, and the dream that I'd had since I was a camp counselor in Maine as a 23-year-old. I believe I was 23 or 24. Um, and that was to move to Maine because Maine is a special place that always soothes my soul and creates inspiration for me. And we did it. We all did it. In fact, I can remember our 25-year-old hugging Ben and I. Ben is my husband, and Jay, our youngest. And we were all crying. And Max said, "We did it. We all flew the nest." It was the day that Ben and I had loaded up our cars. The movers had already come and taken up our stuff. And we were actually moving to Maine. And it's so funny. It's so interesting, too, just to extend on that a little bit. The kids were settled. They had already flown the nest. Ben and I had already had all of our furniture and all of the things that all of our belongings that we were taking to Maine taken up by a moving company. But it would be 3 or more. I believe it would be, I think it was probably more like 3.5 or 4 weeks that we were the culps of no fixed address because we had originally been intending that we would be the culps of no fixed address for a couple of weeks. And so we had planned a place to stay. We were able to stay on a lake and basically we wanted a kind of vacation. Um, and then we would move into our new home and we would sort of take it at our pace because we'd closed on the house. And that's totally not how it happened. We ended up staying and we were very fortunate to be able to stay in that same place for a much longer time than we had originally anticipated. The movers were able to keep our stuff and we could coordinate the closing, which came down to the wire. We almost didn't get the opportunity to close on the house because, oh gosh, because of reasons. Everybody was so amazing as we were coming through it. And then, came a day in September where we had closed and the movers came and dropped off all our belongings but we didn't know any of that. We had no idea the tumultuous nature of what was to come when we were all saying goodbye, the four of us, and Max was saying we all flew the nest. And I would look back on this dream and this event that had happened in early January of 25 and feel like that was part of how we ended up finding our dream home, moving into it, how we were able to support the kids, or at least I was able to support the kids in getting settled where they wanted to be and minding my own business, meaning not over involving myself in their business, while also noticing and understanding my own truth. That was really helpful in realizing the potential that we did realize when we found our dream home in a Facebook marketplace posting and just I think a week or two before we moved in, before we put our own home on the market. It's just so wild how all that came up. And there is an episode in here back in the feed, I believe it from the autumn or early winter, where I share in depth about all that. So if you'd like to hear about it, that's your place. Anyway, the dream and the event themselves happened while I was on Cape Cod. I had booked some time to stay in an Airbnb and just do some painting. I love Cape Cod, especially in the off season. There's something really, really special about it. And I was having basically a miraculous week. I had reconnected with some friends of ours who we've rented their Airbnb, probably 3 or 4 years in a row by that point, and they don't open it in the winter, so I ended up staying somewhere else. And I got to see them. We went out for breakfast one day. They invited me to the gentleman, the husband, actually, and I believe both of them sometimes play in an Irish band. And so I got to go to that, and folks were invited to step up and sing if they wanted to. So I sang. This is so random. It felt like I wondered if the song if I had a hammer would be a good thing to sing because it was a special kind of music. It was like Irish folk music. And so I went up to the main singer, the person who was really coordinating the whole group, and I said, "Is this an appropriate song?" for me to sing right now if I had a hammer. And she said, not only would it be anyway, but today happens to be the day that Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary passed away. So it's even more significant. And then I sang it, and it felt wonderful, just to connect with those people and be really present in that moment and acknowledge Peter of Peter, Paul, and Mary, who has certainly had a huge impact on my parents' life, and then correspondingly a big impact on my life. And somewhere during that week, I had this dream that, well, I will say this. So that night, I went to a place on Cape Cod in the town where I was staying in Eastham. And in Eastham, there is a pizza place called the Three Fools. And they mean fools as in jester, right? And I just loved that. So the fool for me is a very significant, honestly, it started with tarot. So tarot cards have a card in them, which is called the Fool. And what happens is in one part of the deck of tarot cards, the Fool is the first card, and it's card zero, meaning like it's not present. It's not reality. It's the sort of potential before reality. Okay. And then what happens is, if you look at the cards, the Fool is the first of, the Fool basically goes on a journey through these cards. And tarot is something that I use in my coaching and in my own sort of personal development or growth. And I very much associate with the Fool. And what's been really funny over the years is I very often pull the Fool, because what the Fool is doing in the card is stepping joyfully off a cliff. And the card itself is all about surrender. It's about making the choices on your journey. It's about overcoming hesitation and just going, right? From your gut, from your heart, going. And that is something that I would say I am still learning. I'm a lot better at it, but I used to be so frozen in overwhelm or worry or anxiety that I didn't do a good job of viewing the circumstances, making a choice, and going. And I'm increasingly able to do that with a lot of joy. So it was just such fun to be at a place called the Three Fools and have a great pizza. And that night I had a dream. And in the dream, I was standing in the place where I was staying, which was this beautiful little, with so much character, Airbnb overlooking the inlet on Eastham. Eastham has an inlet from of the ocean that sort of, pardon me, that flows into it, and it sort of is in like the middle of Eastham. Is this very interesting like place. And I was in this Airbnb that was so lovingly created and made. The kitchen area featured like a piano. It's just so fun, and there were these big, beautiful windows, and you could look out in the south and the west, on the inlet and on what was beyond it, and it's just like magical. So in my dream, I was standing in the front hall of this Airbnb, and I had found these like fluffy seed heads, and I was just kind of looking at them, playing with them as they floated up into the air and as they floated sort of into my hands or up and out of my hands. And that was the feeling of the dream, was just like, wow, here I am with these fluffy seed heads. I wonder what they'll become. And I woke up and I was like, that was a cool dream. I wonder what's gonna come of that, right? And then that day, I was stopped at a trailhead to find a map. And there's some lovely trails around Cape Cod, and I wanted to have a map so that I could drive to them, because they're not always where I was, be accessible by foot. So I was going to drive to them and stop at this trailhead, pick up a map from one of those like roadside um, things that have like a slanted cover. You lift up the cover and then there are the maps. So really kind of accessible to the elements, but also covered up. So interestingly, not wicked, um, not super open to the elements, but with elements of nature able to get in there, basically. And I get back in the car and I open up the map. It's a map, first of all, which like, okay, right? And in the map have blown these fluffy seed heads. And now what I'm doing is I'm picking them up and watching them move in the same exact way. My movements were the same, and the seed heads themselves were sort of floating around in the car in the exact same way they had in my dream. And I was like, what? What is this? And I did my best to sort of not overanalyze, but instead to just reflect, just sort of be like, what will this mean? What has it meant? What's the feeling here? And over the year of 2025, to be able to come back to that dream and see the significance of certain things in it, just seeds are right. There's this wonderful story that I've heard about an adult and a child walking through a forest. And actually, I think it's a teacher and a student, come to think of it, walking through a forest. They both could be adults walking through, maybe they're even just sitting somewhere. I don't know. But anyway, they're outdoors. And the teacher picks up an acorn and says to the student, what do you see when you look at this acorn? And the student says, I see a tree. And the teacher says, wow, that's wonderful. Like, how beautiful. A tree can grow from this, right? And then the student says, what do you see? And the teacher says, I see a forest. So seeds are just magical. They're these wonderful things, right? And the fact that these were sort of floating along on the air, that they were in a map, and wayfinding is such an important inner setting for me to trust that the way will be shown to me or that things will unfold as they should. Fascinating to me. Lots and lots and lots of potential when I don't try to cloud it with parameters or conditions and instead just kind of go along with the flow. So that was 2025. And then on the 3rd of January this year, I had the experience of remembering that this was the first anniversary of this dream, this sort of potential dream, and then physical, like real experience. And so I wrote about it in here. And what I wrote was, it's the first anniversary of my fluffy seed heads dream. And then really actually finding myself playing in the same way with fluffy seed heads. So unusual in snowy January on the Cape. This is the comforting, cozy, fun, and delightful feeling of manifesting in action, is what I wrote here. And when I think about March this past month, it has been nothing if not that, where I've been really tending to my own nervous system and really you know tuning into minding my own business, letting others mind theirs, noticing my own truth. And I think when we visit or spend time with people who love us and who we love, who we've spent our life with, and then we everybody goes off and we're all living our own lives, and we develop different rhythms and different preferences and different maybe intentions or goals. It's been so lovely to just acknowledge all that and not be pulled in by my own thoughts of like, how can I best be their child or their sister or their auntie? And instead just tune into the feeling of being present with these beloved people. Uh, there have been such fun experiences that I could not have anticipated. There have been some, well, for example, yesterday I was in a car that um, we suddenly found ourselves in in the glaring sun, such that the driver had to stop on a major highway because the driver couldn't see, and they did what they needed to do, and that was so terrifying for everyone, right? And I had the thought this morning when I woke up, you know, um, we must be here for a reason. I must be here for a reason. And the people that I was in the car with must be here for a reason because we're here. Like this very, very serious thing happened, and we are here. We came through it unscathed. Everyone was okay, whether in our car or other cars. And what a gift, you know? And there was a part of me, especially last night, that could not put this down. And I remember thinking, like, this has been 30 seconds of terror out of an amazing day, hours and hours and hours, many hundreds of minutes of amazingness. And my brain is focusing on the 30 seconds of terror. So to be able to kind of put that in its perspective and still, and be able to get a good night's sleep and be able to kind of put down the what might have happened situations, really feels like tuning back into the potential of, without pressure, right? Because me being here for a reason feels like another level of growth on the spiral of my life, that um, of feeling loved and valued from inside, and knowing with even more certainty that the choices I make are, when they come from my heart and my intuition, when my brain is providing information, which is its job, my mind is sort of raising concerns, or without being pulled into those things, I can keep tuning into, like, what's clear here, what's clear here. And that allows me to take exciting steps in my life, and taking the steps in the direction that I want to take steps in is absolutely amazing. So that's what feels like. And when I look at March as a whole, I've been I've been really taking the steps, um, to be present with my family, to create what I wish to create in the world. I did something I've never done before. Um, Last week, I was in an awesome bakery. Oh my gosh, if you get the chance to go to the Butterhorn Bakery in Frisco, Colorado, do it. So I'm in this bakery. It's a restaurant too, and I was enjoying some coffee. And I went, as I often do, I went to this cafe basically to, like, have a meal, but also to paint because I really enjoy that. And the server, who has given me permission to share about this, in fact, I'll share the picture that I made in my Substack. So those of you getting this into your inbox, you'll be able to scroll down and see this picture, if you'd like to. Um, so I'm in this bakery, and my server comes up to me, and he says, his name's Jesse, by the way, and he says, "Oh, what are you making?" And I said, "I'm making some tulips. Like, I've just got this picture up on my phone. I'm gonna make a postcard of these tulips." And he sits down in the chair opposite me, and he says, "Okay, I'm ready for my portrait." And I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just be a little cheeky here, and I'll actually make a portrait of Jesse. And I heard so much noise in my head, like, what if it's hideous? What if he hates it? What if, you know, making portraits or pictures of people, uh, um, has been very challenging for my brain because it brings judgment quickly, right? So I tried to let all that go. And I, instead of making a picture of these tulips, I made a portrait of Jessie at work. And my mom joined me after a little while. So we were sitting together. I'm still painting, we're talking, we're eating, etc. And when it was done, I held it up to my mom and I said, what do you think? And keep in mind, like when I first started being an artist, which was in 2023, 2022, 2022, I would hold up a picture that I'd made of a boat, for example. And I remember saying to my son one time with a literal picture of a boat, can you see what this is? And he said, Mom, I know it's a boat. It's really okay. Like, yes, I can see that it's a boat. And so I didn't say that to my mom. I basically just held it up because I felt like it was, a strong piece of art that didn't, it wasn't overworked. It looked like Jessie. I was really, I just really felt good about it as an artist. You know what I mean? I wasn't bringing brain judgment to it. So I held it up to my mom, and my mom said, "Oh wow, he will love it." And it was so nice to hear that. And so when he came back to the table, I basically said, "I got a little cheeky when you said that you were ready for your portrait, and I painted your portrait, and I gave it to him." And he just was clearly delighted. He was very taken with it, and it felt so nice to share that, to share this experience. There was communication between humans of enjoyment. And um and then I felt I've been thinking of this as what I really did was I was painting for pastries because he very beautifully invited me over to the pastry case and he was like, what do you want? And it was just such a fun experience that I would not have given myself permission to do an amount of time ago. Because again, portraiture can feel very scary. And to be able to let all that go and just make a portrait felt really, really fun. And that was a way in which I'm taking steps in my chosen direction. Um, it feels brave at the same time as fun to do. There's an underlying current of courage there. And in other ways as well, March has been a real opening to joyful opportunities. I'm working with an assistant. I've hired an assistant who is taking on, this is really fun, to be honest. He is taking on, so the task that we agreed that I would do this past week, for example, is I'm I was to make three lists. A list of things that make me happy in my business, a list of things that make me sad in my business but still need to be done, and a list of what makes money, what generates income in my business. And so for context, the work that I'm envisioning and acting on is I see myself as chief aliveness officer for aligned organizations that would really, the kind of organizations that really value their people, that really care about the human beings who work for them as they're all working towards the mission of whatever the business is. And just knowing that, like some of the conversations I'm having, for example, it's so lovely to talk to a leader who says, I'm the head of this organization and I see my people, my teams, wanting to grow for themselves. And I see them dealing with hard things, in their lives. And I can't help them with those things, but I think you might be able to. So I'd really love to talk about what that could look like. And I'm like, wow, okay, like, yes, please. So when my assistant, his name's James, when my assistant gave me this 3 list task, happy, sad, what makes money, I just love that because it's in the doing of it, it made some things incredibly clear that what I love doing is what is in my zone of genius, you know? So that is facilitating, it's coaching, it's hearing, it's thought leadership on human systems, it's it's creating, well, not me creating, helping people create real impact in their own lives in their chosen direction, and seeing how good that is for the growth, not just of the person, but of the people that they support, and, in their personal lives and in their professional lives, how good that is for the businesses that they are working with as well. I mean, there's a really beautiful path to someone feeling well inside, to creating in a way that is well for everybody else and their mission, um so that's my zone of genius. And the things that made me sad that I wrote were like hard things for me. So researching, knowing about companies and organizations like this, first of all, and then keeping track of correspondence and sort of um, consistently taking the steps has been a challenge for me. And yet those are the things that eventually lead to the generating of income, because that's how all this works, right? And so um, I was able to give this list to James of the things that make me sad and also generate income. And that's his zone of genius. So we've sort of hooked up our superpowers together. And boy, the potential for that, like, I'm sleeping better because I've got a partner in crime, you know what I mean? And because of that, I'm doing the meaningful work that feels truly aligned, and allowing someone else to do the meaningful work for them that feels truly aligned. What an incredible impact that is having on me, and also rippling out into the world. So that's something that both the potential for that is starting to be realized, and also still feels like so much beautiful potential. And I mean, it relates right back to the fluffy Seedheads dream, because I had no idea a year ago that I was even going to be able to afford to hire a virtual assistant, to hire an assistant, much less what would come of that within the first weeks. It's just amazing. And then I think the final piece of that is what I've really been able to get out of my own way to offer you some things. Things like a retreat that is happening in September in Maine. There are 6 remaining spots. If you'd like to know more about it and see if a retreat that is kind of a summer camp feel, where we're just enjoying time together on a beautiful lake in a beautiful location, and seeing what gets created. Uh, and I will link to this, there is a page on my website, klockculp.com/events. And you can even just go to klockculp.com and click the events tab, because that's a tab now. I think I'm similar to sharing a portrait with someone who, with someone, I guess. This feels like creating an offering that the right people are going to resonate with. And if you're one of those people, it would be great to see you there. I'm so thrilled because there are some signups that have happened already, and oh, what a feeling to know that there are people in the world who are in, I guess, who are like, yay, I'm in. Um, yeah, so I feel like I'm in this beautiful moment of being pointed in my direction, choosing which direction to point myself in, and then taking steps in this direction with from a good place inside myself, from with a real sense of like that it is the correct direction for me, and knowing that there's fun to come and that the fun is being had right now. Wow. So that's me. That's me for March of 2026 in the Days of Creation game. What fun. Thank you so much for being here with me. Whew. Um, and I think, yeah, there's some links to some fun places to play with me if you'd like to, including this retreat in our show notes. If you'd like to sign up to get these right into your inbox, that's the link to do that is here as well. And in the meantime, you know, if you're enjoying the show, wherever you watch it, I'm really glad you found it, and um, I'm glad to be here with you. Yeah, thank you so much for sitting with me today, or taking me on a walk, or wherever we are together. I'm wishing you very, very well, and I will see you next week. We'll talk soon. Bye bye.